Everything that's happened since January the 6th is driven by one goal, an effort by America's ruling elite to smear, silence, and ultimately destroy the populist movement. For years, we've argued here for positive populism, pro-worker, pro-family, pro-community, pro-America. When you think about what's actually happening in this country, a virus response that's led to a takeover by big government, big bureaucracy, and big business, the big tech takeover. We need positive populism now more than ever, and America needs a strong, united Republican Party to make it happen. Taking back Congress at the end of next year, taking back the White House in 2024, that all starts now. There's no time for a Republican civil war. We know what works. We know what people want. They want positive populism. They want the Trump agenda that built a new multiracial working class coalition by delivering the best economy in history, by lifting up working people, by giving hope to those left behind. But in Washington, they've turned a moment of national unity, disgust with and condemnation of the riot at the Capitol, into more anger, hate, and division. They impeached the president again. After January the 6th, they said Trump must be removed from office immediately because he is a clear and present danger. We can't even wait till the end of his term. But if he's an immediate danger, why do they wait a week? Their article of impeachment says Trump's speech incited the riot, but they're also saying it was pre-planned by organized militias. If it was pre-planned, how did the speech incite it? Their allies in big tech exploited all this to silence conservatives. Google and Apple delisted Parler. Amazon shut it down. Partisan censorship from Facebook and Twitter. It wasn't sincere concern about violence. When it's violence they approve of, they not only allow it, they promote it, as Twitter did with the riots last year that killed at least 30 people. If it's violence that helps their business, they're fine with it. Here's Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg on Monday.
We have clearly established principles that say you cannot call for violence.
Oh, clearly established principles. Hilarious. In India, for years, they were enablers of horrific political violence, all because they didn't want to upset the ruling party. In Myanmar, for years, they were enablers of genocide, according to the New York Times. Human rights groups say Facebook has been promoting violence all around the world, in Ethiopia, in Cambodia, in the Philippines. They don't care about violence, they care about power and money, or as they euphemistically call it, scale. Zuckerberg is a megalomaniac. They're silencing conservatives now to suck up to Democrats so they won't break up their monopolies. What charlatans they are. What unprincipled authoritarians. Then, corporate America, as Kim Strassel put it, from being captives of wokeness to now actively pushing it. We've gone from social justice messages on coffee cups to the financial industry cutting off conservatives. And this is supposed to be about defending democracy and the Constitution. Look at AOC. She said this week the Democrats are working on a plan to rein in media they don't like. They literally want state-run media, like in China. They say it's essential to fight domestic terrorists. That's how the Chinese justify their Uyghur concentration camps. After 9/11 here came the war on terror, which became endless war. It mustn't be a war on Muslims, said the left. No Islamophobia. And of course they were right. But look at them now. They want a war on domestic terror, and it's already becoming a war on Trump supporters, Trump voters. They want endless war on conservatives. They have become conservaphobic. They lecture everyone else on hate, intolerance, and incendiary rhetoric. But after years marinating in the sick, divisive ideology of critical race theory and woke supremacy, they've become exactly what they say they're against. And thanks to their self-righteousness, there are no limits to their power grab. Look at Pelosi. We've been telling you for weeks about the partisan election changes she pushed in her H.R. 1 bill after the 2018 midterms. Guess what? It's back. Last week, to quote the Wall Street Journal, House Democrats reintroduced as H.R. 1 a voting and campaign finance bill that would grease the Democratic voting machine nationwide and restrict political opposition. It would mandate states to have automatic voter registration, expand mail-in voting, and limit efforts to clean up errors in voter rolls. The Banana Republic abomination of ballot harvesting extended nationwide. It's supposed to be one person, one vote, not one union official, 156 votes. This is why so many millions don't trust the election. Not Trump's lies or Fox News propaganda, but partisan changes to the voting system. The problem is we don't have a word to describe it. It's not fraud. It's worse because it's systemic, changing the rules for partisan gain. With electoral districts, we do have a word for it. Gerrymandering. It comes from Governor Gerry of Massachusetts, who signed a bill in the early 19th century that created a district in the shape of a salamander. We need a new word to describe these partisan election changes. I don't know, Nancy-mandering. Of course, now, if you even ask questions about any of this, they call you a Nazi. It's a big lie, they say, like Goebbels.
They're part of the big lie. You know, Goebbels and the great lie. You keep repeating the lie, repeating the lie.
How disgusting that Biden would smear the 4 out of 5 Republicans, 40% of all Americans, 4 million Democrats who have legitimate questions, smear them as Nazis. And he says he wants to unite the country. What a joke. The establishment want you to think this is all about Trump. They're using these Nazi smears to try and destroy the populist movement. But listen to this from their hero, John McCain, in a debate against Obama, talking about a black voter registration group, which he said
is now on the verge of maybe perpetrating one of the greatest frauds in voter history in this country, maybe destroying a fabric of democracy.
Sounds pretty Trumpy, no? The truth is, whether you think the problem is voter fraud or voter suppression, or a combination of the two, the mistrust of our election system is a disaster. It eats away at the legitimacy of government. We have to set up a process to reform it that all sides will trust, from counting votes to making sure only those who are legally entitled to vote do vote, but also making sure that as many Americans as possible vote. Participation is good for democracy. That is a central principle of populism, people power. But electoral reform is just the start. If Biden really wants unity, he needs to confront his own big lie, Russia collusion. They pushed that for 4 years. Democrats, CNN, MSNBC, the big lie of Russia collusion, that Trump was an illegitimate president. Does that make them Nazis too? If Biden truly wants to heal the country, he must acknowledge that Trump was a legitimate president, admit Russia collusion was invented by Democrats with no evidence, and apologize for using it to try and derail the entire Trump presidency for 4 years. Of course, despite all that, Trump did deliver his promises and delivered results. And he showed the future of the GOP as a multiracial working-class coalition united behind what I described last week as the best of Trump. Respect for those who were left behind, the strength to challenge elitism, ideas that help lift up the working class. That's the Republican future. Positive populism, the exact opposite of Cheney and McConnell. They represent everything that's wrong with politics and government. Liz Cheney, heiress to a political empire built on blood, the puppet of the military-industrial complex, the grim zealot for endless war. The establishment are now holding her up as a principled leader. Give me a break. She sacrificed her own sister for her political career. McConnell and his family is corrupt as the Biden family, probably more. We'll have details later with Peter Schweitzer. The Republican establishment is not the future, it's the past. The future is positive populism, and we have to be clear what it means. Taking a stand against corruption, refusing to take the swamp's money, like Matt Gaetz, our guest tonight, and Kevin Kiley in the California State Assembly. It means fighting corrupt nominees for government positions. They say Biden wants confirmations this week for Janet Yellen, Lloyd Austin, Alejandro Mayorkas. No. Janet Yellen for Treasury, despite taking over $7 million in speaking fees from the likes of Goldman Sachs and Google, the corrupt revolving door between big government and big business. I know they all do it. She's no worse than most, but at some point we have to say enough. Yellen should not be confirmed. Same with Lloyd Austin for defense. After retiring from the army, he sat on the board of Raytheon, who sold billions in weapons to fuel wars in the Middle East. He's the stooge of the military-industrial complex. He should not be confirmed. Alejandro Mayorkas for Homeland Security, are you kidding? He was handing out visas to the Chinese as a favor for powerful Democrats like Terry McAuliffe, a Clinton crony who's now running again for governor of Virginia and backed by Pelosi. This is a whole stinking pile of manure. He should not be confirmed. Positive populism means Republicans committing, finally, as a party, to taking on this kind of corruption. Shut the revolving door, ban conflict donors, drain the swamp. Positive populism means smashing the big tech monopoly so they can't collude against half of America, imposing an open access obligation on dominant tech providers. Positive populism means the Trump policy agenda, pro-business on tax and regulation, pro-worker on trade and immigration, and more emphasis on policies that are pro-family and pro-community, like school choice and honoring the 10th Amendment by decentralizing power. The only sensible response to what's going on now is to unite and fight to get power back and use it properly next time. Break up big tech, break up big government, take on the government unions and the Democrat political machine. Run for office if you can, encourage others if you can't. Let's keep building this positive populist movement and Donald Trump's multiracial working class coalition. Stay on Twitter and fight there. No violence, no extremism. We need an off-ramp from extremism to channel anger and passion into power that can deliver real and lasting change. So yes, Parler may be down, but we are still on Twitter. Follow us there at NextRevFNC and Steve Hilton X.